Hey, good morning. Just leaving the house, headed to the team meeting, and just thought I would take a few minutes while I'm driving. And yeah, this is a hands-free video, so it meets all the regulations of the National Association of Mobile Realtors, which is an organization I just made up. Anyway, just want to talk about the inspection process. This came up a few days ago. Had some discussions with some clients just about the inspection process, and thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of leave some general information. Seems like most of my clients, of course, most buyers and some sellers, as we're going through this, they're asking the same types of questions over and over again. So I thought it'd be good just to do a quick little video, just kind of go over some of the highlights of the home inspection process. So as far as we begin with the day the contract is signed. So once the contract is signed and we are officially under contract, both buyer and seller, then at that point our due diligence period begins the next day. So typically, depending on the contract, we usually have roughly 10 to 12 days or so to do the inspection process. That is the due diligence period. That period is meant to check out every aspect of the house. So that's our time to have the house fully evaluated, both inside and outside. Anything about the home, the property, even things like school zones and taxes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's basically during that time period, it's our job to review everything associated with this home to make sure that the buyer knows exactly everything they can possibly know within reason about the home, about this investment that they're about to make. So that's the job there. So during this 10 to 12 day period, for any reason whatsoever, if the buyer wants to back out of the contract, they can do so, and they're not in breach of contract. They get their deposit back, no questions asked. I mean, it's a done deal. And when I say any reason, I mean if you don't like the way the sun shines on the roof that day, you can back out the contract as long as you're within that due diligence period. And this is a protection for the buyer. So once we go into contract, then it's important, because we're operating at that point on a limited timeline. We want to schedule that inspection process as soon as we can. Usually, and I say that because these home inspectors can get pretty busy, and there's a lot of great home inspectors in the area. But during the busy season, their schedules can get pretty jammed up pretty quickly. So the last thing you want to do is forget to schedule your inspector, and then 2 or 3 days before the deadline ends, you realize and make these phone calls, and the guys can't come out. So then maybe you're forced to use an inspector that you didn't want to use. And again, I'm going to a worst case scenario, but of course, as your agent, I'm going to make sure that we stay on top of the timelines. I'm going to work with you to make sure that the inspection process is scheduled just as soon as possible. So I'm just talking about worst case scenario, just so you know the potential danger of not doing it. Of course, if we don't do an inspection and if we miss the deadline, then the assumption is we've chosen to just proceed with the sale of the home. At that point, you're locked into the contract. Once that due diligence period is over, if you haven't replied back to with a buyer response to a property inspection and communicated that to the seller, to their agent, then at that point the assumption is we've just chosen to proceed, and that's why we haven't responded. So again, after that due diligence period, if we haven't replied back and all of a sudden you want to get out the contract, well, then at that point you're talking about being in breach of contract. You can't just back out for any reason whatsoever at that point, and you could lose your deposit, or in some cases, the seller could take some other form of legal action if you choose not to proceed with the sale. So again, don't want to scare you by that. That's not something that happens hardly ever, but just trying to emphasize the importance of the inspection deadline and needing to get that process scheduled as soon as possible. So when it comes to the inspector itself, there's a lot of great home inspection companies, as I mentioned, in the area. And typically what we do is, we do this all the time. We've done, the team over the year has done literally hundreds. The team I work with, they've done tons of these inspections. They've used some great inspectors, and they used some inspectors that we didn't care for. So the inspectors that we use at this point, or the inspectors that we recommend to our clients at this point, they've been vetted. We're comfortable with them. They do a very thorough job for our clients. Our goal is to if the inspection goes bad and it's not a good deal for you, then I mean, we don't want you to buy the house. We're not just trying to get you to buy a home and push you through a transaction. This is a huge investment. We want you guys to walk away from this process happy with us and with the referrals that we give you. We're very leery about referring other vendors to our clients, because at the end of the day, that's a reflection on us. If things don't go well with the referral vendor that we give you, a few years down the road, when you're looking for a realtor, or you have a friend or family member who's asking about, hey, who knows a good realtor? Well, you're probably going to think about us and that bad referral and how things went south, and you may not give us that referral, right? So it's in our best interest to give you an inspection referral that is going to take good care of you, give you good experience, make sure that you feel well informed with the reporting information they give you. So that's our goal. If you choose to walk away from a home sale after the inspection's done, then we've done our job. If the issues are that bad and it's not a good deal, then we don't want you to proceed. We'll shut this thing down and we'll move on, and we'll find you a house that'll work better for you. So our goal is for you to be happy with where you end up overall, and whatever path it takes us to get there, then so be it. So once you pick a home inspector, and I'm rattling. This is obviously not scripted. I'm just kind of thinking about it, talking out loud. Once you schedule your home inspector, then of course we'll meet there at the house. The inspections usually take 2 to 2.5 hours, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending upon the size of the property and whether or not the property is vacant. The inspections can go very quickly, or they can take a while, depending upon the size of the home. You're more than welcome as the buyer, of course. You're more than welcome to be there. We prefer you to be there. But if that's a long time, and usually these inspections will typically happen during the course of the business day, during the week. So if you can't be there the whole time, that's perfectly understandable. If you can only make it for a short time, highly encourage you to be there during the last 30 minutes or so of the inspection. At that point, the inspector, of course, will have a good general overview of the home, and they'll be able to give you the summary, and you can ask any questions, of course, while the inspector's there face to face. Usually within 24 hours of the inspection, you're going to get a very thorough, robust report of everything that inspector identified. It's going to be, there'll be pictures of everything along with the notes and their recommendation as to what to do with that defect. And typically, again, when we inspect houses, because it's going to be a thorough inspection, I mean, this report's going to be scary, and we always tell people, don't get nervous about the size of the report. Every house has defects. New homes have defects. So if you go in there and you buy a house that's 10, 20, 30 years old, there's going to be some wear and tear on it. And the inspector is there, again, to identify everything that's not perfect. So yes, there's going to be comments about little minor defects that are just normal wear and tear of the home being lived in, that are not really a concern. But again, it's all about making you aware of the property condition, that you're about to purchase. That's the goal. So the inspector will generally identify what he considers the big ticket items, the issues that are major problems that do need to be dealt with in their professional opinion before we proceed to the next step. Now again, this is a disclaimer, and the inspectors will tell you the same thing. They are typically not experts in every field. They're there to give you a 30,000 foot overview of that home. So, in most cases, these guys, they're not roofers, they're not electricians, they're not plumbers, they're not foundation guys. These guys are there to basically give you an overview of any defects that they can see, if they can physically look at it, touch it, get access to it. If they see a potential problem, what they refer to as a tattletale sign of something that may or may not be an issue, but if it looks like it could be, they're going to write it up. They're going to put it in the report. And typically what they'll do is if they will suggest that we get a licensed professional in whatever that area of concern is. If there's a potential defect with the roof that they see, they're going to suggest we get a roofer. If there's a potential defect with the plumbing, they're going to suggest we get a plumber out there. So that's what they're there for. They're there to give us an overview. If there's some things that we are really concerned about after the inspection, then more than likely we'll make a few more calls and get an AC guy there or get a roofer there to identify exactly whether or not, you know, what we found during the inspection is a problem. So that's their job. And again, that they'll explain this to you themselves. A lot of them, they're very clear and open about what they're doing there and what the expectation is for this home inspection. So that's the general process of you know, the way it works. And of course, after the inspection is done, we'll review the report together. We'll identify the items that are those big ticket items, and then at that point, we will submit a buyer response. And again, I'm having all these conversations through the perspective of an agent representing a buyer. You know, this is good information for the seller as well to understand what's going on both ends. So yeah, we'll submit a buyer response to the property inspection, which is basically just a list of repairs that we're asking the seller to address. Now, at that point, the seller has some options on how they're going to address our report, right? So they're either going to fix everything that we asked for, which is typically best case scenario. You know, the seller takes care of everything, and if the repair is something that we feel needs to be done by a licensed professional, you know, again, you know, if there's an electrical issue, we want the seller to send an electrician there to fix it, not you know, grab a roll of duct tape and head up to the attic to take care of something that we identified. We want to make sure that the repairs are done by a licensed professional, and we can request proof and documentation that it was done by you know, a professional in whatever that field is. So again, so the seller can agree to fix everything. Great. They can agree to fix some of the items. You know, they may not agree with everything that we put on there, so they could come back with a list of partial repairs that they're going to do. They could come back and say, you know what, we've looked at all these repairs, and we think we're estimating that the total, you know, cost of everything is, say, $2,000. You know, whatever combination of repairs that is. So instead of doing the repairs, we're just going to knock off, you know, $2,000 from the sale price. You know, or we'll allocate funds to repairs after the sale. You know, something of that nature. That there's different scenarios, but basically they could say, hey, we're not going to fix anything, but we're going to give you, you know, some compensation. That way you can take care of the repairs yourself. The other response, which is also possible, is the seller could say, hey guys, we're not fixing anything. Sorry, you know, whatever the situation is, they're not able to fix it. They you know, for financial reasons, they can't foot the repair cost. So their answer is take it or leave it. We're not doing anything. So, you know, that's obviously not the response that we want to get, but that is a potential response that a seller could come back with. So in that case, again, you know, this whole process is geared to protect the buyer. In that point, you're not locked in, right? We're still within that period where you can opt to back out of the contract and not be in breach of any type and still get your deposit back. So if you're not happy with the way the inspection negotiation goes, and we can't see eye to eye with the seller on what needs to be done, then you can back out of the contract, and we can start from square one, find you a better house that's in better condition and doesn't have these types of defects that you're concerned about. So that's the deal. That's basically the way the inspection process works. I know I have some people asking, well, what about the appraisal? You know, sometimes the appraisal can take place, you know, before the inspection, after the inspection. What's best? The general rule is we obviously are trying to save the buyer as much money as possible. The inspection is a cost that, as a buyer, you're going to have to incur at that time. You will have to pay the inspector when they inspect the home, and you know, that's typically, it can range anywhere from, you know, from $300, you know, $400 or $500 or more, depending upon the size of the property. Typically, you know, and again, I'm just throwing some general numbers out there. We generally see the inspection costs run somewhere between, you know, maybe, you know, $400. That's probably an average, you know, for most normal size homes. As far as the appraisal goes, there's a cost associated with the appraisal as well. If we're concerned about the inspection not going well, then we don't want to send the appraiser out there before the inspection has been completed, because that would be another expense that you as a buyer would have to incur if the inspection doesn't go well. So typically what we like to do is request, you know, the lender, the banking institution, whoever you're using to finance the sale of the home, we would ask them to wait to send the appraiser until after the inspection process is completed. That way we know we're proceeding with the sale. you guys aren't going to get stuck paying for an appraisal for a home that you end up backing out of, because of an inspection issue. So now that's not always possible. Sometimes there's logistical reasons why the appraiser has to be done quicker. But as a general rule, we like to have the appraisal done after the fact, if possible. That's usually the better case scenario for our clients. So yeah, that's it. That's a lot of information, and again, not scripted. I'm just kind of rattling on, just kind of thinking about the way the process works. But yeah, if you have any questions about the inspection process, please feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, shoot me a quick text. I'll be happy to clarify any of those details that we just discussed. And that's it, guys. I'm actually just driving into the office now for our team meeting. So if you have any other questions, I'm here. Please feel free to contact me, and thanks for watching the video. I'll talk to you soon.